As a classical piano teacher, you know you should maybe be including pop music in your lessons, but it's hard to make that happen when it's not in your wheelhouse or you never learned any pop music or even listened to it yourself. In this video, I'll go through students' motivations for wanting to learn pop, what these motivations mean in terms of what repertoire you should actually be choosing, and common mistakes that I see lots and lots of piano teachers making when it comes to teaching pop music. I've been running a classical based but creative piano studio for many years now, and I've seen students come through my door wanting all different types of pop music in all its guises. So I've seen the mistakes and I've made them myself, and I'm here to tell you that you are able to teach pop music if you just follow these guidelines. So whether you're entirely new to teaching pop music or you just want to make it more effective and useful in your studio, you've come to the right place. Right, first off, let's understand why your student wants to learn some pop music. You might think it's just one motivation, but it's actually three separate possibilities. Let's break those down and understand each one. Number one is that they just like the style of pop music. It's what they're listening to, it's the music that they enjoy, and so they want to learn it. Right? Makes sense. Number two, though, is that they actually want to play things that other people recognize, and that's going to lead you in a different direction entirely. That's a surprisingly common reason students actually want pop music or ask for pop music. What they mean is stuff that other people recognize, not stuff from my method book, not stuff from those dusty classical literature collections that nobody actually knows, because I want to go out onto a street piano or at a friend's house and play something and have people recognize the thing I'm playing, because that obviously brings them joy. And the third reason is that they actually want to play their favorite pop songs, specific songs. They have a favorite artist, they have a few favorite songs, they want to learn to play those because they love the music and they want to get inside it, in the same way that we love Beethoven sonatas and we want to get inside them. Okay, so depending on which motivation your student has, and you'll have to have a chat with them to discover which one it is, there are three different approaches to teaching pop music that can be useful. And we actually have a separate video that goes into more detail on these different approaches that we'll link in the description. Number one is for those students who actually just enjoy the style of pop. They like the sound of pop music generally. They don't have specific songs in mind, and they're not trying to play for anyone and have them recognize the piece. In those cases, pop style music is actually going to be better for you. It's going to be a lot easier for you to find at your students' level. These are things like Spotlight Solos by Jennifer Eklund and other collections that sound like pop music, but aren't actually real pop songs that you've heard on the radio. Method number two of teaching pop is to teach arrangements of some pop music, but also some classical music. What am I talking about here? Well, for those students who actually just wanted to learn things that people recognize, classical music can often fit the bill. If you pick arrangements of favorite classical pieces. This is the reason, by the way, that you get to Ode to Joy in your method book of choice. It's in almost every method book series. You get to Ode to Joy and students love it. They love it because people recognize it, but it doesn't sound like a baby song. So it's not Mary Had a Little Lamb, but it's something people know. That's why students love it so much. They love playing it for people and having people be impressed that they're learning this Beethoven piece, right? So many students who want to learn pop music don't actually need pop music at all, although that can be in the mix too. What they need are arrangements of things people know. So this is where you reach for the arrangements of Beethoven's Fifth and things like that, but also arrangements of things like the Beatles and Queens and popular favorites that have been around for years and years and have tons of arrangements available. Now, method number three of teaching pop music is for those that have specific songs in mind. These are the students who come to you saying they love Taylor Swift and they want to learn Taylor Swift, or they love some other artist that you've never heard of in your life and they want to learn them. This is where you need to go on the hunt and buy single sheet musics. Honestly, if you buy a book, it almost never works out here. unless a student is truly obsessed. And this is where students often come to me with a book that their parent bought for them for Christmas. Ever had this happen? And it's like all the songs from La La Land, okay? Because a student loves La La Land. And that's wonderful, and I love that they're supporting them, and I absolutely never say anything negative to the parent about it. But they're normally the wrong level, and there's normally just too many of them. It's the enthusiasm will burn out at some point. So that's why I prefer individual sheets that satisfy that craving, that you really get to know, and maybe you end up doing a few of them, but that's it. It won't be the full score of La La Land, probably. So, for this, I reach to a few different spots. My first stop is always FM sheet music, which is by the wonderful Jennifer Eklund, who already came up today. She does arrangements that are always pianistic and gorgeous to play and sound like the real deal. Otherwise, she won't arrange it. So if it's a song that doesn't suit being arranged for piano, she just won't do it. And that's a great place to start. So if it is something really popular, it might be on FM sheet music. The next stop would be Novi Score. The reason I like them, by the way, that's Novi Score. Novi Score, I like them because they don't have everything either, but for the ones they do have, they have several different levels of the same song. So that's great for finding something to suit your student. And then after that, go dive into music notes, find something, and really test it out yourself to make sure it's going to work and be the right level and sound good if they can play it. I'm going to throw in a secret fourth method of teaching pop right here, and that is to teach chord patterns and chord-based approaches. This is for your students who you discover maybe what they want to do is write their own song. I didn't put this in my top 3 motivations because it's a little bit more rare, but for your teens who really want to write their own music, and maybe are a little bit coy about it at first by asking to learn pop music, but that's what they really want, then give them a solid foundation in chords, chord patterns, vamping, structures, and all different ways of playing chords. And maybe introduce them to lead sheets as well as a way to explore this further. Alright, here's the moment you've been waiting for. Here are my 5 mistakes that teachers make all the time when it comes to teaching pop music. Mistake number 1 is that they're just not listening together with their students. Do you listen to music with your students in the lesson? You may need to pre-screen for younger students to make sure the lyrics are okay, but don't be afraid to listen to the music together. You need to see which bits of the song your students like, whether they really actually know it, because sometimes it was actually someone else's idea and you only discover that when you see them listening to it, or they ask you for a particular artist and you look up the most popular song by that artist, but it turns out your student doesn't know that song. So listening to the music together is so valuable. Mistake number 2 is to count out the rhythms methodically. I'm all for doing that most of the time in most music, but in pop music, probably not. The reason is, number 1, your student should already know how this song goes. They already know the rhythm and how it's supposed to sound. So the notation sometimes can be getting in the way of that. Number 2 is that it normally isn't accurate. Honestly, there's often swing that's not put in, or there's different rhythms that they've written out in an odd way, or they've chosen a weird time signature when it actually would have been much easier to read in, say, 12/8, but they thought that was complicated, so they wrote it in 4/4. There's all sorts of things that happen. So don't be too strict on the counting out part of the rhythms. Listen, imitate, use the score as a reference and a guideline more than something to follow to the T. Mistake number 3 in pop music is something my friend Tim Topham talks about all the time, and that is starting at the start. When I realized this based on Tim's advice, it was a game changer for me. You shouldn't always start a pop song at the start because they're incredibly long and your student often doesn't love the start the most. So here's the thing that happens if you start at the beginning. You don't get to their favorite part. If they love the bridge, you should start at the bridge because you probably won't end up learning the full song. Sometimes you will, but there's no guarantee. So don't start at the beginning unless that's your student's favorite bit. Which brings me to mistake number 4, and that is learning the whole thing. You don't need to learn the whole thing. It's not necessary. Sometimes it'll be a great experience, but often it's just a lot of repeats. They don't need to do all of them unless they want to sing along with the song themselves. And in which case, go for it. Learn the full thing. They're going to perform the full song, 3 minutes at their friend's wedding. Great. But if they're not, the whole pop song is normally not a necessary step. So play by ear there. And our final mistake number 5, is not singing the melody. Often, pop songs sound best when they're sung. Surprise, surprise, since they're songs, right? They're not pieces. So often the best option to play a song is to play the piano part or the instrumental part and sing the singer's part. Because otherwise you're going to be stuck with me, re, mi, that kind of pattern. That's often what a pop song actually is. And without the words and without the voice and the intonation, it's not much fun to listen to. So make sure your student is singing along if they're at all open to that. Or you sing, they play, and make it a little collaboration opportunity. Let me know which one of these mistakes was true for you, or if one of the different motivations for learning pop music was a surprise to you in the comments below. And of course, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and found it useful for you.